We'll do 3 Hail and Blesseds. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen. Hail and blessed be the hour and moment in which the Son of God was born of the most pure Virgin Mary, at midnight in Bethlehem and piercing cold. In that hour vouchsafe, O my God, to hear my prayer and grant my petitions, through the merits of our Savior Jesus Christ and of his blessed Mother. Amen. Hail and blessed be the hour and moment in which the Son of God was born of the most pure Virgin Mary, at midnight in Bethlehem and piercing cold. In that hour vouchsafe, O my God, to hear my prayer and grant my petitions, through the merits of our Savior Jesus Christ and of his blessed Mother. Amen. Hail and blessed be the hour and moment in which the Son of God was born of the most pure Virgin Mary, at midnight in Bethlehem and piercing cold. In that hour vouchsafe, O my God, to hear my prayer and grant my petitions, through the merits of our Savior Jesus Christ and of his blessed Mother. Amen. Saint Anthony of Padua. Very much. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen.
And also, today, if you can get a baby, I can think of some sort of mechanical stuff that can get the two things outside your body, and then after several months, put the thing back. You can sort of like have the baby. And that also illegal. Like you can't do that, right?
The surrogacy stuff. I don't know what the surrogacy stuff is. That they have a lot more embryos than they make room for. So when you do that, then you're creating babies that you have no intention of gestating.
Yeah,
that's sinful.
See, that's one of my grandfather's friend in this country. His daughter-in-law was like, she got divorced first and then married her second husband, and then she can't have a baby anymore, so she just moved to the hospital and did the thing. And then after 6 months, they found out that, oh no, your body is not good enough to have the baby. So she said, okay, stop with the abortion.
Yeah, which is and you can see why it's wrong, because you're taking upon yourself things that are God's domain.
It's impossible.
You can't be doing that. Colleen, will you read for us? We're back on the aisle, which isn't actually an aisle. And Sancho is making judgments left and right. And I challenge you to give me one misjudgment. I don't think he's missed one. This last guy, it sounded like a page out of the book of Plato when we started having a philosophical argument about, can you make me sleep in jail? And the would-be, maybe not, we can't tell criminal was so clever and talked his way out of jail. And Sancho said, get out of here, don't come back. All right, so we're at the very top of 785. And the governor's making his rounds, and we come across a person who looks like a man but isn't. She's a woman and no plain one dressed up in man's clothes, which, of course, certainly has a different connotation today than it did before. Coco, are you in a position to read for us, please?
Yeah. But I warn you not to make a mock of the law in future, for you may meet someone who will return you the joke on your skull. The youth went off, and the governor continued his rounds. Then shortly afterwards, 2 constables came up, grasping a man, and said, Lord Governor, this person looks like a man, but isn't. She's a woman, and no plain one, dressed up in a man's clothes. They raised 2 or 3 lanterns to her face, and their light revealed the features of a girl of 16 or so, with her hair gathered into a little net of gold and green silk, and lovely as 1,000 pearls. They looked her up and down, and saw that she was wearing flesh-colored silk stockings with white taffeta garters edged with golden seed pearl. Her breeches were of green cloth of gold. Her jacket or coat of the same cloth hung loose, and beneath it she wore a doublet of the finest white and gold material. Her shoes were white and like a man. She wore no sword on her belt, but a jeweled dagger, and on her fingers several very fine rings. In short, everyone thought the girl handsome, but not one of them recognized her, the natives of the place saying that they could not think who she was. But most surprised of all were those who were in the secret of the tricks which were being played on Sancho, because this meeting had not been contrived by them, and so they awaited its upshot with some excitement. Sancho was struck by the girl's beauty and asked her who she was, where she was going, and what reason she had for wearing those clothes. And she answered with honest shame, her eyes fixed on the ground, "Sir, I cannot reveal in public what it is so important for me to keep secret. One thing I want to be understood is that I am not a thief or a wicked person, but a poor young lady driven by jealousy to forget my modesty." Hearing this, the steward said to Sancho, "Make your attendants retire, my lord governor, so that this lady can say what she will with less embarrassment." The governor gave orders to that effect, and everyone drew aside except the steward, the butler, and the secretary. Then, when they were alone, the young lady went on to say, "Gentlemen, I am the daughter of Pedro Perez Mazorca, who farms the wool in this place and often comes to my father's house." "That won't pass, lady," said the steward, "for I know Pedro Perez very well, and I know that he has no children, male or female. What's more, you say that he's your father, and then add that he often comes to your father's house." "I'd already seen that," said Sancho. "Indeed, gentlemen, I'm confused, and I don't know what I'm saying," answered the young lady. "But the truth is that I am the daughter of Diego de la Llana, whom your worships must all know." "Now that'll pass," said the steward, "for I know Diego de la Llana, and I know that he's an important and rich gentleman, and that he has a son and a daughter, and since he has been left a widower, there has been no one in this whole place who can say that he has seen his daughter's face, for he keeps her so confined that he doesn't even let the sun look on her. But for all that, it's rumored that she's extremely beautiful." "That's the truth," replied the young lady. "I am the daughter. Whether rumor lies or not about my beauty, you gentlemen will have discovered, for you have seen me." At this she began to weep piteously, and at the sight of her tears the secretary put his lips to the butler's ears and said to him, very quietly, "Something serious must certainly have happened to this poor young lady, for her to be wandering from her home in this disguise, and at such an hour, she being of such quality too." "There's no doubt of that," answered the butler, "and besides, her tears confirm the suspicion." Sancho comforted her with the best arguments he knew, and begged her to tell him what had happened to her without any fear, for they would all try most earnestly to help her in every possible way. "This is the case, gentlemen," she replied. "My father has kept me confined for the last 10 years. That is, ever since my mother was laid in the earth. Mass is said at home in a fine chapel, and in all that time I have seen nothing but the sun by day and the stars and the moon by night. I don't know the look of streets or market-places or churches or even men, except my father and my one brother, and Pedro Perez, the wool farmer, who visits the house so often that it came into my head to call him my father, so as not to mention my real one. This confinement and his refusal to let me leave the house, even to go to church, have made me very unhappy these many days and months. I longed to see the world, or at least the village where I was born, and this wish didn't seem to me to infringe the modesty proper to young ladies of my birth. Now, when I heard them talk of bullfighting and cane throwing and play acting, I asked my brother, who was a year younger than I, to tell me about it all, and about many other things I hadn't seen. And he explained them to me in the best way he could, but it only inflamed my longing to see them. In the end, to shorten the tale of my undoing, let me say that I begged and entreated my brother. Oh, I wish I had never begged and entreated him. And she burst into tears once more, at which the steward said to her, "Proceed, lady, and finish telling us what happened to you, for your words and your tears are keeping us all on our tenterhooks." "There's little more to tell," replied the young lady, "though there are still many tears to be shed, for there's no other way of atoning for sinful wishes." The young lady's beauty had sunk into the butler's very soul, and as he held up his lantern once more to look on her again, it seemed to him that they were not tears she wept, but seed pearl or meadow dew, and he even raised them a point higher and compared them to orient pearls, hoping all the while that her misfortunes were not as great as her tears and sobs suggested. The governor was out of all patience at the girl's slowness in telling her story, and bade her put them out of their suspense, for it was late and there was much of the town still to cover. Then, between sobs and half-breathed sighs, she went on. "My misfortune and misery is no other than this, that I entreated my brother to disguise me as a man in one of his suits, and take me out one night to see all the town, while our father was asleep. He gave in to my entreaties, put these clothes on me, and dressed himself in some of mine, which suited him as if he were born for them, for he has no down on his chin, and looks like nothing so much as a lovely girl. Tonight, it must be an hour or so ago, we left the house, and our young and unruly fancy sent us wandering all around the town. But just as we were going to return home, we saw a great troop of people coming, and my brother said to me, 'Sister, this must be the watch. Fly like the wind and follow me. If we are recognized, it'll be the worse for us.' And as he spoke, he turned round and set off running, though it was more like flying. Before I had gone 6 paces, I fell down from fright. And the officers of justice came up and brought me before your worships. And here I am, shown up for a wicked, capricious girl before all these people. So that's all your trouble, young lady, said Sancho, and it wasn't jealousy that brought you from your home, as you told us at the beginning of your tale? Yes, that's all, and it wasn't jealousy that brought me out, but just a wish to see the world, and that didn't go further than seeing the streets of this place. And the truth of the young lady's story was confirmed by the arrival of two constables with her brother as their prisoner, for one of them had caught him when he ran away from his sister. He wore a rich skirt and a blue damask cloak with fine gold lacings. His head had no covering or adornment except his hair, which was as red and curly as rings of gold. The governor, the steward, and the butler took him on one side of his sister's hearing and asked him how he came to be so dressed. And he, with no less shame and embarrassment, told the same tale as she had told, to the great pleasure of the love-stricken butler. The governor, however, addressed them. This has been a very childish prank indeed, and there was no need of all this sighing and sobbing over the telling of your rash and stupid escapade. For if you had said, we are so and so and so and so, and we left our parents' house in this disguise to amuse ourselves, and we only did it out of curiosity and for no other reason, the story would have been done without all this moaning and weeping and the rest of it. That's quite true, replied the young lady, but I must confess, your worships, that I was in such a confusion that I couldn't decide what to do. Nothing has been lost, said Sancho. Let us go and leave you both at your father's house. Perhaps he won't have missed you. But don't behave so childishly in the future, or be so anxious to see the world, for an honest maid and a broken leg are best at home. A woman and a hen are soon lost by gadding, and the girl who's anxious to see also longs to be seen. I say no more. The youth thanked the governor for the favor he proposed to do them by escorting them home, which was no fair. So they set out. On their arrival, the brother threw a pebble at a window, whereat a maid servant who was waiting for them immediately came down and opened the door, and they went in, leaving everyone wondering at their beauty and good breeding, and at the desire to see the world by night without going further than their village. But they put everything down to their tender years. The butler was left with his heart transfixed, and at once resolved to ask the young lady's father for her hand the next day, feeling quite certain that he would not be refused, as he was a servant of the Duke's. The thought even came into Sancho's head of marrying the youth to his daughter, Sanchinka, and he decided to put his plan into practice at the proper time, believing that no husband could be refused to a governor's daughter. This was the end of the night's rounds, and within 2 days of the governorship, by which end all Sancho's designs were cut short and obliterated, as shall later be seen.
Oh, chapter 50. How will you keep going?
For a little bit, which reveals who the enchanters and executioners were that beat the waiting woman and pinched and scratched Don Quixote, with the adventure of the page who bore the letter to Teresa Panza, Sancho Panza's wife. Cide Hamete, the most meticulous investigator of every detail of this true history, says that at the moment when Doña Rodriguez left her room to go to Don Quixote's apartment, another waiting woman who slept with her heard her, and as all waiting women are fond of prying, listening, and sniffing, she went after her so silently that the good Rodriguez did not notice her. Now, as soon as this waiting woman saw the other enter Don Quixote's room, for fear of failing in the waiting woman's custom of tale-bearing, she went to inform her mistress, the Duchess, that Doña Rodriguez was in Don Quixote's bedroom, whereat the Duchess told the Duke, and asked his permission for herself and Altisidora to go and see what that lady wanted with Don Quixote. The Duke agreed, and the two of them very warily and silently crept step by step and took up their position behind the door of the room, so close that they overheard every word spoken inside. And when the Duchess heard the Rodriguez expose the secret of her garden and fountains, neither she nor Altisidora could bear it, and so they burst into the room in a great fury and spoiling for revenge, to pinch Don Quixote and slap the waiting woman in the manner described. For affronts directed against the beauty and pride of woman awakened them a high degree of anger, and kindled their desire for revenge. And when the Duchess told the Duke what had happened, he was greatly amused. Then, in pursuance of her plan for amusing herself at Don Quixote's expense, the Duchess sent the page who had played the part of Dulcinea in the performance of her disenchantment, which Sancho had clean forgotten in his occupation of governing, to his wife Teresa Panza with her husband's letter and another from herself, also a great string of fine corals as a present. Now the history tells that this page was very shrewd and sharp, and out of eagerness to serve his master and mistress, set out with a very good will for Sancho's village. And just as he entered it, he saw a great number of women doing their washing in a stream, and asked them if they could tell them whether there was a woman called Teresa Panza living there, the wife of a certain Sancho Panza, squire to a knight called Don Quixote de la Mancha. And the girl stood up from her linen and answered him, Teresa Ponza is my mother, and Sancho Panza is my father, and the knight's our master. Then come, young lady, said the page, and take me to your mother, for I bear a letter and a present for her from the father of yours. That I will, and gladly, my dear sir, replied the girl, who seemed to be 14 or so. And leaving the clothes she was washing to one of her companions, she did not wait to put on a hat or shoes, for she was bare-legged and dishevelled, but ran skipping along before the page's horse, crying, Come, your worship, our house is at the end of this village, and my mother's at home in a great state because she hasn't heard from my father for so long. Well, I bring her such good news, said the page, that she'll have to thank God for it. At length, jumping, running, and skipping, the girl came to the village, but before she entered the house, she called from the door, Come out, Mother Teresa, come out, for here's a gentleman bringing letters and other things from my good father. At this call, her mother, Teresa Ponza, came out skipping a bunch of flax and wearing a gray skirt, so skimpy that it looked as if it had been cut short as a mark of shame, a gray bodice, and a skirt. She was not very old, although she looked more than 40, but strong and tough, vigorous and wizened. When she caught sight of her daughter and the page on horseback, she said, What's this, child? Who's this gentleman? A servant of my lady Teresa Ponza, answered the page, and with these words he leapt from his horse and went up to kneel most humbly before the lady Teresa, saying, Give me your hands, my lady Doña Teresa, which you are as the lawful and particular wife of the Lord Don Sancho Panza, own governor of the Isle of Barataria. Oh, my dear sir, get up from there. Don't do that, replied Teresa. I'm none of your palace ladies, but a poor working woman, daughter of a plowman and a wife of a squire errant and no governor. Your worship, answered the page, is the most worthy wife of a most arch-worthy governor, and to prove it true, receive this letter and this present. And he whipped out from his pocket a string of corals with gold beads between them, and threw them round her neck, saying, This letter's from the governor, and another which I bring, and these corals are from my lady the duchess, who has sent me to your worship. Teresa was thunderstruck, and her daughter no less so. May I die, for Master Don Quixote isn't in this, cried the girl. He must have given father the governorship or countship he promised him so often. That's right, answered the page, for it is on account of Don Quixote that Lord Sancho is now governor of the Isle of Barataria, as can be seen by this letter. Read it me, your worship, master gentleman, said Teresa, for although I can spin, I can't read a word. No more can I, put in Sanchinka. But wait for me here, and I'll go and call someone to read it, either the priest himself or the bachelor Samson Carrasco. They'll be very glad to come and have news of my father. There's no need to call anyone, said the page, for though I can't spin, I can read, and will read it. And so he read it all, though it is not printed here as it has been set down already. Then he took out another letter from the Duchess, which went like this. Friend Teresa, your husband Sancho's excellent qualities of goodness and wit have moved me to beg my husband the Duke to confer on him the governorship of one of his many isles. I am informed that he governs like a goshawk, at which I am much pleased, as, of course, is my lord the Duke. Wherefore I have great thanks to heaven that I was not mistaken in choosing him for this governorship, for I would have the lady Teresa know that it is hard to find a good governor in the world, and may God be as good to me as Sancho is in his governing. I send you herewith, my dear, a string of corals with golden beads between them. I should have been glad if they had been orient pearls, but the one who gives you a bone does not wish you dead. The time will come when we shall know one another and converse together, and God knows what will come of that. I send regards to Sanchinka, your daughter. Tell her from me to be prepared, for I mean to make a fine match for her when she least expects it. They tell me that there are fat acorns in your village. Send me some couple of dozen, for I shall value them most highly, coming from your hand. Write me a long letter advising me of your health and prosperity, and if you need anything you have only to open your mouth, and it shall be filled to full measure. God keep you from this place. Your loving friend, the Duchess. Ah, cried Teresa on hearing the letter, what a good, simple, humble lady. Let me be buried with such ladies, I say, and not the madams we're used to in this place, who think that because they're gentry the wind mustn't touch them, and go to church in such finery as if they were real queens, and seem to think they're demeaning themselves by looking at a peasant woman. And here you see where this good lady calls me friend and treats me like her equal, although she's a duchess, and may I see her equal to the highest steeple in all La Mancha. As to the acorns, my dear sir, I'll send her ladyship a peck so fat that people will come from far and near to admire them. But for the present, Sanchinka, mind and make a fuss of this gentleman. Look after his horse, get some eggs out of the stable, and cut plenty of bacon. Let's give him a dinner fit for a prince. He deserves it for the good news he's brought us, and for his handsome face. In the meantime, I'll go and tell my neighbors about our good luck, and the Holy Father too, and Master Nicholas the barber, for they're always been such friends to your father. Yes, I'll do that, mother, answered Sanchinka. But you'll have to give me half that necklace, mine, for I don't think my lady the Duchess is so silly as to have sent it all to you. It's all for you, daughter, cried Teresa, but let me wear it round my neck for a few days, for truly it seems to make my heart glad. You'll both be glad too, said the page, when you see the parcel I've got in this bag. It's a suit of the finest cloth which the governor only wore for one day's hunting, and he sent it all to the lady Sanchica. May he live 1,000 years, exclaimed Sanchica, and the bearer no less, and 2,000 more if he needs. At this, Teresa left the house with the letters, and with the necklace round her neck, beating the letters as she went along, as if they were tambourines, and chancing to meet the priest and Samson Carrasco, she began to dance, crying, "There's no poor relation about us now, I promise you. We've got a little government, and if your gay gentlemen meddle with me, I'll take them down a peg or two." "What's this, Teresa Panza? Are you crazy? What are those papers?" "I'm not crazy, but these are letters from duchesses and governors, and the beads round my neck are fine corals, and the Ave Marias and Paternosters are of beaten gold, and I'm a governor's lady." "Heaven help us! We don't know what you mean, Teresa. What is it that you're saying?" "There, look," replied Teresa, and gave them the letters. The priest read them aloud to Samson Carrasco, and they looked at one another in astonishment at the news they read. Then the bachelor asked who had brought the letters, and Teresa replied that they should come to her house and see the messenger, who was a youth as handsome as a gold brooch, and had brought another present worth twice as much. The priest took the corals from around her neck and examined them, and being convinced of their value, he wondered afresh and said, "By my cloth, I don't know what to make of these letters and presents. On the one hand, I can see and feel that these are fine corals, and on the other, I read that a duchess sends to ask for 2 dozen acorns." "Let us strike a balance between the two," said Carrasco, "and let us go now and see the bearer of this packet, for he may solve the mystery." This they did, and Teresa returned with them. They found the page sifting some barley for his horse, and Sanchica cutting a rasher to pave it with eggs for the page's dinner. They were both taken by his looks and his grand appearance, and after they exchanged courteous salutations, Samson asked him for news of Sancho Panza and Don Quixote. For though they had read Sancho's letter and the duchess's, they were still perplexed and could not make out all this about Sancho's governorship, especially about it being an isle, seeing that nearly all the islands in the Mediterranean Sea belonged to his majesty. "There is not the slightest doubt that Sancho Panza is a governor," replied the page, "but whether it's an isle or not he governs is no concern of mine. Enough that it's a place of more than 1,000 inhabitants. But as to my lady the Duchess sending to beg for a few acorns, if you knew how simple and humble she is, you wouldn't be surprised, for she has even on occasion sent to borrow a comb from a neighbor. Indeed, I would have your worships know that although the ladies of Aragon are as high in rank as the ladies of Castile, they're not so haughty and ceremonious, but much more affable with the people." While they were in the middle of this conversation, Sanchica burst in with her apron full of eggs and asked the page, "Tell me, sir, does my father wear laced breeches since he's a governor?" "I have not noticed," answered the page, "but he certainly should wear them." "Oh, my lord," exclaimed Sanchica, "what a sight it must be to see my father in tights. Isn't it odd that I've longed to see him in laced breeches ever since I was born?" "Well, your grace will see him in just such clothes if you will," answered the page. "If his government lasts 2 months, he'll be wearing a travelling hood, I promise you." The priest and the barber clearly saw the page was pulling their legs, but the quality of the corals and the hunting suit Sancho had sent, for Teresa had by now shown them the clothes, spoke on the other side. However, they could not forbear laughing at Sanchica's wish, especially when Teresa said, "Master priest, inquire about here if there's anyone going to Madrid or Toledo who would buy me a hooped farthingale, a good, proper, fashionable one, and of the best quality, for I must certainly do my husband's government all the credit I can. They may tease me, but I'll go to court, and buy a coach like the rest of them, for she that has a governor for husband can afford to keep a coach." "And why not, mother?" said Sanchica, "and the sooner the better, please God. Though people may call after us when they see me riding in a coach beside my lady mother, 'Look at the good-for-nothing old garlic gut's daughter. See her sitting there in the coach leaning back like Pope Joan.' But let them tread in the mud, and me ride in my coach with my feet off the ground. Bad luck to every scandalmonger in the world. Let them laugh so long as I go warm. Aren't I right, mother dear?" "Oh, how right you are, daughter," answered Teresa. "All this good fortune, and even better, my good Sancho foretold me, and you'll see that he won't stop till he has made me a countess, my girl, for with luck, it's the beginning that counts. And I've often heard your dear father say, and he's got more proverbs than children, when they give you the calf, run with the halter. When they give you a governorship, hold on to it. When they give you a countship, grip it tight. When they whistle you with something good to give you, gulp it down. Or else sleep on and don't answer when luck and good things come knocking at your door. And what do I care, added Sanchica, if some of them say, look at the dog in linen breeches, and all the rest when they see me stuck up in highfalutin? And the priest observed when he heard her, I cannot help thinking that every one of this Panza family was born with a sack of proverbs inside of him. I have never known one of them who does not spill them out at all times and in every conversation he takes part in. That's the truth, said the page, for Lord Governor Sancho spouts them at every turn, and although many of them are off the point, still they give pleasure, and my lady the Duchess and the Duke are highly delighted with them. But do you still affirm that it's true, sir, asked the bachelor this, about Sancho's governorship, and that there is really a duchess who sends him presents and writes to him? Because we can't believe it, even though we've handled the presents and read the letters. We reckon it's one of the neighbor Don Quixote's inventions, for he thinks that everything is done by enchantment. So I'm afraid we shall have to touch you and feel you to see if you were an imaginary ambassador of flesh and blood man. Sirs, answered the page, all I know of myself is that I'm a real ambassador, that my lord Sancho Panza is in fact a governor, and that my master and mistress, the Duke and Duchess, can give and have given him that government, in which I've heard the said Sancho Panza performs most admirably. Whether there are enchantments in this or not, your worships may settle between yourselves, for that's all I know, as I will swear you on oath on the life of my parents, who are now living, and whom I love and honor exceedingly. That may be, replied the bachelor, but dubitat Augustinus. Let him doubt who will, said the page, but I've told you the truth, and the truth will always rise above a lie, like oil and water, and if not, operibus credite et non verbis. Let one of you come with me, and he shall see with his own eyes what he does not believe when he hears it. That journey's for me, exclaimed Sanchica. Take me on your horse crupper, sir. I should love to go and see my father. Governor's daughters, replied the page, mustn't travel the highways on their own. They must be attended by coaches and litters and great crowds of servants. Good heavens, replied Sanchica, I can go as easily on an ass as in a coach. Do you take me for one of your squeamish ones? What, girl, said Teresa. You don't know what you're saying. This gentleman's right, for circumstances alter cases. When it was Sancho, it was Sancho. It was Sancho. When it's governor, it's my lady. Aren't I right, sir? The Lady Teresa says more than she imagines, said the page. Now let me have my dinner and send me off, for I want to get back this evening. Your worship shall come and do penance with me, said the priest, for Lady Teresa has more goodwill than good cheer to welcome so worthy a guest. The page declined, but in the end had to give in to his own advantage. The priest bore him off, highly delighted at the opportunity of questioning him on his leisure about Don Quixote and his doings. The bachelor offered Teresa to write answers to her letters, but she did not want him meddling in her affairs, as she took him for a bit of a joker, and so she gave a roll and a couple of eggs to a young friar who could write, and he penned 2 letters for her, one to her husband and the other to the Duchess, dictated out of her own head, and by no means the worst quoted in the famous history, as will be seen later.
Good job. Chapter 51 of the progress of Sancho Panza's government and other matters such as they are. But we just had a foreshadowing that his governorship would only last another 2 days. What could that be about? Dawn broke after the night of the governor's rounds, which the butler had passed without sleep, his thoughts dwelling on the face, the charm, and the beauty of the disguised young lady, while the steward spent what remained of it, writing down for his master and mistress all Sancho's sayings and doings, in considerable amazement at both, for his speeches and his actions were such a mixture of shrewdness and simplicity. At length the Lord Governor rose, and by order of Dr. Pedro Riccio, they made him breakfast on a little preserved fruit and 4 gulps of cold water. Sancho would willingly have exchanged the meal for a bit of bread and a bunch of grapes, but finding that it was a matter rather of compulsion than of choice, he submitted with much grief of heart and mortification of stomach, Pedro Riccio making him believe that scanty and delicate fare sharpened the intellect, as was most necessary for persons appointed to authority and high employment, which required strength of mind rather than bodily vigor. By this sophistry, Sancho was induced to bear such keen hunger that in his secret heart he cursed his governorship or his government and even the giver of it. However, with this hunger and his preserved fruit, he sat in judgment that day, and the first case that came before him was a question submitted by a stranger in the presence of the steward and the rest of the fraternity. It was this. Boy, it seems like all he does is judge cases. And he doesn't even get fed. Sir, a deep river divides a certain lord's estate into two parts. Listen carefully, your worship, for the case is an important one and rather difficult. I must tell you then that over this river is a bridge, and at one end a gallows and a sort of courthouse in which 4 judges sit to administer the law imposed by the owner of the river, the bridges, and the estate. It runs like this, quote, before anyone crosses this bridge, he must first state an oath where he is going and for what purpose. If he swears truly, he may be allowed to pass. But if he tells a lie, he shall suffer death by hanging on the gallows there displayed without any hope of mercy. Though they know the law and its rigorous conditions, many people cross the bridge, and as they clearly make true statements, the judges let them pass freely. Now it happened that once they put a man on his oath, and he swore that he was going to die on the gallows there, and that was all. After due deliberations, the judges pronounced as follows. Do you get it? You have to tell the truth as why you're crossing the bridge. And so the guy says, on my oath, I say I'm crossing the bridge to die on the gallows. Is that true or false?
False.
False. But what happens if you give a falsity trying to cross the bridge? You die on the gallows. But if you die on the gallows, then it's true.
Same as what the thing's called, like every time he lied, his nose got longer.
Pinocchio.
Yeah, Pinocchio.
But he's trying to confuse them because it's true and then false and then true and then false and then true and then false. What are they going to do with them?
Oh.
After due deliberation, the judges pronounced as follows. If we let this man pass freely, he will have sworn a false oath, and according to the law, he must die. But he swore that he was going to die on the gallows, and if we hang him, that will be the truth. So by the same law, he should go free. We ask your worship, Lord Governor, what the judges ought to do with this man, for they are still perplexed and undecided. And when they heard of your worship's great wisdom and acuteness, they sent me to beg you for your opinion of this intricate and doubtful case. Really, these worthy judges who sent you to me might have saved themselves the trouble, replied Sancho. There is a good deal more dullness than acuteness in me. But repeat the matter to me all the same so that I may understand it, and then perhaps I shall hit the nail on the head. The questioner repeated what he had said at first, and Sancho observed, I think I can resolve this business in a brace of shakes. It's like this. The man swears that he's going to die on the gallows, and if he does die, his oath was true, and by the law as it stands, he deserved to go free and cross the bridge. But if they don't hang him, he swore to a lie, and by that same law deserves to be hanged. The Lord Governor is quite correct, said the messenger. And as regards his judgment, as an interpretation of the case, there is no more question or doubt. But let me continue, replied Sancho. They must let that part of the man which swore truly cross the bridge, and hang the part that swore to the lie. In that way, the conditions of passage will be fulfilled to the letter. Then Lord Governor, said the questioner, this man will have to be divided into two parts, the lying part and the truthful part. And if he is divided, he's bound to die. Thus, no part of the law's demand is fulfilled, and it's absolutely necessary for us to comply with it. Look here, my good fellow, replied Sancho. Either I'm a dolt, or there's as much reason for this passenger of yours to die as to live and cross the bridge. For, if the truth saves him, the lie equally condemns him. This being so, which it is, I think you should tell those gentlemen who sent you to me that since the reasons for condemning him and acquitting him are equally balanced, they must let him pass freely, for it's always more commendable to do good than to do ill. This decision I would give signed with my name if I knew how to sign. And in this case, I have not spoken out of my own head, for there came to mind one of the many precepts my master Don Quixote gave me the night before I came to be made governor of the isle, which is, that when justice was in doubt, I should incline to the side of mercy. And God has been pleased to bring it to my mind now, for it fits this case to a T. That's so, said the steward, and I don't believe that Lycurgus himself, who gave the law to the Lacedaemonians, could have given a better decision than the great Panza has done. And now let the session be closed for this morning, and I'll order the governor a dinner that will more than satisfy him. That's what I want, and fair play, said Sancho. If I have some dinner, it may rain cases and decisions. I'll polish them off as they fall. The steward kept his word, for it weighed on his conscience to be killing so wise a governor by hunger. Besides, he intended to finish him with that same night by playing him the last trick he was commissioned to play. So it was that the governor dined that day in defiance of all Dr. Tertefuera's rules and aphorisms, and when the cloths were lifted, a courier came in with a letter for him from Don Quixote. Sancho bade the secretary read it to himself, and then if there was nothing in it that he should keep secret, to read it aloud. The secretary obeyed, and after glancing it over, he said, it can certainly be read aloud. What Don Quixote has written to your worship deserves to be stamped and written in letters of gold. This is what he says. Letter of Don Quixote de la Mancha to Sancho Panza, governor of the Isle of Barataria. Where I expected, friend Sancho, to hear news of your negligence and folly, I have had accounts of your wise actions, for which I return especial thanks to heaven, which can raise the poor from the dunghill and make wise men of fools. They tell me you govern like a man, yet as a man you are scarcely more than a brute creature, so humbly do you behave. But I would have you take note, Sancho, that this is often fitting and necessary for the authority of office to go counter to the heart's humility. For the due state of a person appointed to an important office must conform to the requirements of that office, and not to the moderation natural to his humble disposition. Dress well, for a stick well decorated seems more than a stick. I do not mean that you should wear finery or trinkets, or that being a judge you should clothe yourself as a soldier, but that you should wear the dress your office requires, so long as it is clean and neat. To gain the goodwill of the people you govern, you must do two things amongst others. The first is to be civil to everyone, though I have told you this once already, and the other, to provide an abundance of the necessities of life, for there is nothing which distresses the hearts of the poor more than hunger and want. Do not make any statues, but if you make them, try to make good ones, and particularly see that they are kept and fulfilled. Statutes, that's lost. For if statutes are not kept, they might as well not exist. Who teaches us that? An unenforceable law is no law at all.
Aristotle?
Nope. You're getting close.
Plato?
Nope. Catholic. St.
Oh.
Thomas Aquinas. Very good, Marian. Besides, they show that though the prince had a wisdom and authority to make them, he had not courage to see they were observed. And laws which threaten but are not carried out come to be like that log, which was the king of the frogs. He frightened them at first, but in time they despised him and climbed upon his back. Be a father to virtues and a stepfather to vices. Do not always be harsh or always mild. Choose the mean between the two extremes, for here lies the point of wisdom. Visit the prisons, the slaughterhouses, and the markets, for the governor's presence in such places is of much importance. It comforts the prisoners who expect a speedy release. It is a bugbear to the butchers who for a time have to use accurate weights, and it scares the market women for the same reason. Do not show yourself greedy, even if you are so perhaps, which I do not believe, or given to women or gluttony. For if the people and such have dealings with you, discover your dominant inclination, they will open battery fire on you in that quarter until they bring you down to the depths of perdition. Consider and reconsider, view and review the counsels and instructions I gave you in writing before you left here for your government, and you will see that when what you find in them, if you observe them, an additional help to ease you over the troubles and difficulties which governors meet at every turn. Write to your lord and lady and show them your gratitude. For ingratitude is the daughter of pride and one of the greatest sins known. And the person who is grateful to his benefactors gives assurance that he will be so to God also, who has done him and continues to do him so many benefits. The Duchess has sent off a messenger with your suit and other presents to your wife, Teresa Panza. We expect an answer at any moment. I have been a little indisposed from a certain cat clawing that befell me, somewhat at the expense of my nose. But it was nothing, for if there are enchanters who persecute me, there are also some who defend me. Let me know whether the steward who is with you had anything to do with the business of the Trifaldi as you suspected. And you should keep me advised of everything which happens to you, for the distance is short. More particularly as I intend soon to leave this idle life I am living at present, for I was not born for it. There is a matter which has arisen and which I believe will put me into disgrace with the Duke and Duchess. But though it concerns me much, it does not affect my decision at all. For when it comes to the point, I must comply with my profession rather than with their pleasure, according to the saying, amicus Plato sed magis amica veritas. I give you this in Latin, for I suppose that you have learnt it since you have become governor. So, farewell, and God keep you free from all harm. Your friend, Don Quixote de la Mancha. Sancho listened most attentively to this letter, which was praised for its wisdom by all who heard it. He then rose from the table, and calling the secretary, shut himself up in the room with him, intending to reply to his master Don Quixote at once, without more delay. So he instructed the secretary to write from his dictation without adding or omitting a word, which he did, and the answering letter was to this effect, which we shall pick up on Monday when I see you next. Thank you. No homework for literature except B, starting your paper. Alice, I sent you the prompt again. Does anyone else need the prompts again, or you all have it printed out and all that?
Could you send it to me just in case the one I was thinking of doesn't work?
Yes. Yes. Anyone else?
Could you send it to me?
Yes, Tanya. Harry, do you want it?
Sure. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. God bless you, ladies. Blessed holy day to you, and a happy 3-day weekend. And I'll see you Monday, refreshed and renewed. God bless you.
Thank you.